Well, hello, my badass friends. My name is Cece, and this is my badass life. It's been a minute, right? I know. And I don't know how to explain that, except to say that this last year and couple months has actually felt like living years in dog years. Every month feels like a year. And you'll probably remember my couple of posts from 2025 where I talked about the current situation and how it was impacting cancer survivors and many of our concerns. And so, so I don't know why I wasn't able to just get online and talk and do my badass life post. And the only excuse that I can give is that I'm just tired, exhausted, and really just spending every day trying to process what's happening in our world, in our country, and the loss of funding for cancer research, which is devastating to our community. The fact that colorectal cancer is now the #1 cancer killer of people under 50, 4 years ahead of schedule, and that's based on old data, not new data, because they're not collecting the new data the same way, thanks to the current situation, because that's all I can call it right now, without using bad words that I'll have to bleep. And, add to that just the level of stress that so many of us are experiencing, and those of us in the LGBTQ plus community are experiencing, women, etc., etc., etc. And so, I had to take a breath. And quite frankly, I'm actually in Mexico right now. In fact, I'm at the dentist with Doc, Amy. She's testing out dentistry in Mexico. And we may be doing a whole lot more of that because our healthcare costs also skyrocketed after the big ugly bill, and our medical insurance plan went up by $1,600 a month. And that's in addition to what we were already paying, which wasn't cheap. And our deductibles went up to $8,500 each, which means no coverage until you hit $8,500. And we would be paying over $2,200 a month for our ACA plan. So as a result of that, we had to start looking at other options, because as people who are in between the years of retirement and Medicare, we don't have the luxury of cheap healthcare. And of course, I'm still in surveillance mode for another 2 years, which means scans every 6 months. It means ctDNA blood tests, which cost $5,000 a pop, that insurance already doesn't cover because they say it's experimental, even though it's not. And so there have been a lot of challenges this year, and a lot of strategizing, and a lot of pre-planning for what could be the inevitable in our lives. And so we are here in Mexico exploring, creating a backup plan. If you follow us on social media, you probably already saw our video, Mexico Explained. And if you didn't, that happened about a week or so ago. You can go back and find it, or feel free to send me a message and I'll shoot that link to you and you can get caught up there. But the other thing that I did is I started writing songs, which sort of consumed some of my time because it was the only way that I was staying sane. And of course, there are posts about that too, so I'm not going to belabor that here. But I've been writing songs, protest songs, also some spiritual songs. On the days that I don't feel like writing protest songs, I definitely have the pendulum swinging back and forth from day to day, as many of us do. There's a lot of anxiety, there's a lot of fear, there's resentment, there's anger. I mean, truly, we have run the gambit of emotions this year, and this is definitely not what I thought our lives post-cancer, post-COVID, and certainly in remission were going to be. But the current regime has made it very clear that that they want to send us all backwards 50 or more years, and so we have to step up. And so here we are, and we've got to strategize. We have to be smart about our futures if we want to stay in charge of our own destiny. And that's the other thing that I'm feeling is a little out of control of my own destiny. Somebody put it in that we are all in a state of polycrisis right now, which means there's literally one crisis happening after another, and all of them are overlapping on top of each other. And they are literally flooding the zone on purpose, because everything is a distraction, and you get a distraction from a distraction from a distraction, and you have polycrisis. And then people literally start to lose hope because they feel like they're no longer able to visualize a happy future, or a future where they get to decide what their lives look like. And that does sound dismal. And I think part of me didn't want to come on and have another post that sounded like, the world is ending. But quite frankly, we are past Pollyanna positivity, and we are smack dab in the middle of reality. And I wish it was reality TV, but we're in this reality now, and so we have to step up. We have to speak up. We have gotten to what feels like a tipping point, and if more people don't start speaking up, we are on a trajectory to a future that doesn't look so bright for a lot of people. So, all that being said, I took a break for a minute. It doesn't mean that I'm not still advocating for colorectal cancer survivors and colorectal cancer every day. But I did shift a little bit of my focus to advocating for the LGBTQ plus community, because they are in many ways under attack right now. And we all know that the target zone, there are those in the center of the target right now, and there are others who are in the outer rings, and all of these things need to be addressed. And I know that this isn't necessarily the forum for that, but if you are a cancer survivor, or or love a cancer survivor, you need to be aware of all of the things that are impacting our lives right now. Not to mention, the one other one is that medical debt is one of the largest reasons why people file for bankruptcy and foreclosure in this country. And the prior administration had made it so that medical debt would not be counted against you in many ways. And this regime rolled that protection back. And so now, so many people who are in the situation of medical debt are now going to be declaring bankruptcy, foreclosures, etc., and it will be held against them on their credit reports, their credit scoring, any number of things, making it impossible for them to get everything from student loans to home loans, etc., etc. And in fact, if you want to know the reality of that, we just lost someone in our community who most of you know. He was actually a TV star, and James Vanderbeek, and they are doing a GoFundMe campaign for his family in order to help them afford to maintain their home. So when somebody of his stature ends up spending all of his life savings, and I don't know his story entirely, all I do know is that his family is financially struggling, or will be financially struggling once all of his medical bills are paid. He just died of this disease. He was a prominent figure, an actor who, we all would assume probably was making a good living. Granted, had several kids and probably a large home, but everything is relative, right? And so, cancer treatment wiped his family out. And, going back to what I said about my healthcare coverage, it's easy to see how that can happen. And in fact, one of the things that we did was we pivoted from the ACA plans, which I don't know if all of you know this, that my ACA plan only covered me in the state of Colorado. And currently ACA, which is often known as Obamacare, is required to cover you for pre-existing conditions, which those folks in Washington would love to get rid of that pre-existing condition. So once we found out what our healthcare premiums were going to be, we had to pivot, which means that we had to find a new insurance company. And we were fortunate enough to find an international plan that accepted my pre-existing condition, because private insurance will not do that, and they did so with conditions. And so they accepted my pre-existing condition. It's still the same amount of money, but at least I get worldwide coverage, and my deductible is a little lower, but still very high. And ultimately I get more bang for my buck. But here's the kicker. My very first claim got denied because it's pre-existing. So even though we thought we did all the homework and jumped through all the hoops and had it all figured out, we too could be facing a lot more in our healthcare out-of-pocket costs this year. And when they deny something as pre-existing, it doesn't count towards your deductible either. So therefore, it is truly just cash out of pocket. And how many of you have that much cash out of pocket lying around to pay for scans that cost tens of thousands of dollars, etc.? So back to one of the reasons why I'm in Mexico. Back to one of the reasons why, honestly, I just needed to take a step back, because I don't even know what to say anymore sometimes. I come on and I feel like all I'm doing is perpetuating doom and gloom, and yet it's the reality of what we are all living in. And whether you voted for this or not, there is still time to change your mind, because it is impacting real people who you know on an everyday basis, not just people of color, not just immigrants. And by the way, immigrants are not taking your health care. That's your government doing that now. So there you have it. I love you. Hang in there. It's been a rough year for all of us, and boy, 2026 is off to a rip-roaring start, isn't it? So all I can say is, despite it all, I still have hope for the future. We absolutely need a hero, but I'm starting to realize that that is every single one of us, because no one but us is going to save us. And at this moment in time, we still have the power, but we have to be willing to exercise it.